Something is brewing together. Once again, I was lucky to annihilate some high-proof liquor together with Corporal Lohnert. Since he's always got an ear close to the officers' meeting, he's usually in the know. But he also reveals in the face to always know a bit more than we. One he has to tickle him to get some information. To that end, I'm heading to his quarters with cheese and wine. I received these extra rations in exchange for a PPSH or PPSH gun, which I had found after the assault on the bunkers. It's a nice weapon, even though it's not much use for me inside a tank. But the infantry soldiers cherish this robust machine pistol very much. Master Sergeant Hansen is usually not opposed to us making small barter deals. Regarding valuables of fallen Russians, however, we received a clear message. Under his command, there was to be no scavenging or plundering. A machine pistol or handgun was a different story. Lohnert lets it slip that more and more Russian troops were gathering around Kharkiv. All our small advances only serve the one goal to strengthen and to improve our starting positions. According to the situational map, which Lohnert had gotten a glimpse of, 3 Russian armies had been identified around Kharkiv. I can hardly believe that they've got that many soldiers. Unless a Russian army is in regards to personnel not as strong as our own. But all right, everyone is preparing for something big. Every day there's a clash somewhere. Yesterday I learned that the Berger crew, with whom I'd served as a tank gunner for some time, had fallen in their tank. I know that Berger had wanted to prove himself. But earlier I had always been able to slow him down and keep him out of dangerous situations. What had happened? During a firefight with Russian scouts, a Panzer III had been destroyed. 2 more tanks had been disabled with blown-off tracks. Berger received the order to cover the tank crews and to give covering fire until reinforcements arrived or the tracks had been repaired. But then apparently his hunter instincts kicked in and he rolled farther against the enemy. There were no infantry or other combat vehicles in the vicinity which could have covered him. That in itself should have led to the decision to remain in place and wait. A platoon of Russians then engaged the tank with anti-tank rifles and made it immobile. Close combat units with hand grenades and Molotov cocktails gave it the rest. No one came back. If such a bold advance succeeds, one is a hero. If not, one just gets a birch cross. Damn it, he should have known better. Now 5 good men have fallen. My commander dispatches me to drive to the nearby Fighter Squadron 52 in order to deliver a small token of appreciation to his old school buddy. There, the Me-109 are in action at an airfield covering the airspace around Kharkiv. It's roughly 30 kilometers to go to the outskirts of the city. It's not exactly comfortable in a sidecar of the motorcycle, but still better than having to walk the distance. Frozen through and splattered with mud, I arrive at the airfield. Fortunately, the comrades from the motorcycle unit gave me a leather coat and a pair of goggles. With these, it wasn't quite as bad. Here it seems like a hornet's nest. Planes are starting and landing in short successions. Flying, that's gotta be really something. For sure, I will be able to someday, somewhere fly along. We'll see. I ask my way through to my commander's friend, and I'm being led into a large, cozy room which is apparently the officer's mess. An Air Force Master Sergeant in leather jacket and flight suit, his cap slanted on his head, and a scarf around the neck joins me. He introduces himself as Master Sergeant Flotzek. He looks at me and has to chuckle over my outfit. This doesn't quite look like a black hussar with that mud-splattered leather coat, he remarks, but he is understanding since I got there by motorcycle. You can send the driver back. I will have you taken back by field car later. A very friendly Master Sergeant. We sit down and have a mug of coffee together. I dutifully hand over the package from my commander. He sets it aside in order to open it later in private. A private brings in a couple of pieces of cake. Slowly, I'm starting to like it with the Air Force. The Master Sergeant asks me how long I've been with the Army and has me give an exact account of how I made it out of the tank with Hansen back then. So he knows the story, but he wants to hear my account of the events. Thoughtfully, he looks out the window and lights a cigarette after giving me one as well. He asks me what I think of the new Hansen. At first, I don't understand what he is referring to. In a few words, he explains that he had visited my commander in the military hospital several times. There, he had noticed that he had changed, no longer possessed to drive, and perhaps didn't belong to the front line anymore. I try to avoid and only answer with excuses so as not to say anything wrong. In the end, he implores me to take care of Hansen. I should support him wherever I could and give him advice in heated situations, or indeed turn the wheel around literally. A little bit later, the Master Sergeant takes me out on the airstrip and shows me the planes. It's great how the airplanes are sitting there just waiting to climb back into the air. I like to fly along, but the fighter planes are single-seaters. With a Korea plane, that might work out, and the Master Sergeant remarks I should report back again in the next few days. Then I tell about the Me-109, which defended us from the Russians. He smiles. Now I realize the reason for my visit. One from his squadron had shot down the Russians. My commander knew by the markings of the fighter plane right away which squadron it had been. Therefore, the small package at the thank you, I assume. I ask about the pilot who protected us, and the Master Sergeant leads me to a barrack. Short time later, a sergeant emerged with an Iron Cross First Class on his flight jacket and a long clasp made of gold on his left chest. That's him, remarks Master Sergeant Flotzek to me. This is Sergeant Rungert, our daredevil. Returns almost out of fuel and nevertheless shoots down 2 Russians before approaching his own base with nothing but hot air in the tank. The daredevil smirks at me. I give him my hand and thank him for his help. We chat for a while, but then there's an alarm and I'll have to go. With a pat on the shoulder, I am dismissed. I'm to hurry up and get to the field car. So back to Kharkiv. This time on 4 wheels and not just 3. It was a fantastic day with the guys from the Air Force. Obviously, not all of them are wearing a necktie in the plane. Back in Kharkiv, I report the motorcycle unit and return the coat and goggles. With a letter for my commander, I go over to our tank and tell the Master Sergeant what I'd experienced. The next time he'd come along and visit his old friend, he said, "Today just didn't work out due to a bunch of reports and meetings." Again, a few Me-109s thunder away over Kharkiv, and I imagine that it's those men from earlier who again and again are flying against the enemy. In the evening, I'm still sitting in my quarters, writing a few letters to my family and making some sketches of airplanes. They have now become really fascinating to me.